Hey, guys, we are live on the 113th Red Room. Luke is missing in the square. He is destaging a 6,000 square foot house. He said he would jump on. So when I see him pop in, I'm sure he'll be on a phone, probably have a little background noise to add on to that. and
Mm-hmm.
But
And the
I'll add
chaos.
a little chaos going on. He'll be sleeveless, I'm sure. So.
That's it. That's a
So,
guarantee.
2025, last show of 2025 has been a little bit of an interesting year. I thought I would read off just a little bit of stats for you guys. Basically, the inventory has actually gone down, which I had mentioned last week. It's gone down 1,500 units, and this is as of today. And I actually pulled it up an hour ago. It was 24,238. And I actually pulled up MLS because this is from the Cromford report that I got printed out. And as of 30 minutes ago, it was actually down to 23,800. So this actually page is a little old. It was probably, a snapshot from last night or the day before. So that's about, as of today, 1,700 units that have come off the market. Give you a little snapshot as of last quarter. It was 23,800. So we did have some inventory come on the market, and we're basically back to almost that same number that we were last quarter. To give you an idea what it looked like last year, it was 21,300. So 2,000 more units. Now, you have to remember in 2025, we added Northern Arizona. So if you were to last year in December 2024, Northern Arizona wasn't here. It is now. So if we look at apples to apples, the 21,300 is probably pretty close because I think there's like 16 or 17,000 units that are on the Northern Arizona MLS that got added. The day it got added, I think it was like 1,650. I don't track that number on a daily basis, but if you were to look at that, we're probably right at last year's numbers. You want to throw 2 years ago, it was 16,000 units. So clearly inventory is up, like we all know. If you want to look at just pendings, like what is sold last year, or today, we have basically 4,100 pendings. Last month, we had basically 4,300 pendings. This time last year, we only had 3,777 pendings. So this time from a year ago, we sold a few more units, nothing crazy. And then similar with the under contract, 6,900 units versus last month's was 7,400 units, but versus this time last year was 6,300 units. Once again, we've sold more this time than last year. So sales volume, we're at 74,000 sales per year. Last year, this time we were at 71,000. So, up about 5%. And then 2 years ago was 72,000. So believe it or not, even though that 2025 was not a stellar year, we're going to sell more units in 2025 than we did in 2024 and 2023. Now, we're talking like 5% more. Nothing's like, nothing that's going to make, the chart jump or anything.
That was still surprising, though.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. And it's like, hey, we've actually, a lot of people have said 2025 isn't awesome. We knew that 2024 wasn't awesome and 2023 wasn't awesome because everybody's probably got a gauge based on 21 and 22 and 20 and 19. Like everybody did well in real estate for a long time.
Right.
So the sluggishness is here, and it's been around since June of 2022 when the interest rates started climbing. But we're kind of just status quo for the last 3 years. Like,
Right.
I'm sure you teach all your students this. It's like, you just can't put it on the market anymore, right? You got to do a good
Well,
job.
yeah, no, precisely. And I think it's interesting because what you might feel one day to the next, or 1 month or 1 quarter to the next, and then you're looking at the stats and, like, dare I say the B word, things have been a little bit balanced. It's
Yeah.
just been the last decade of insanity that makes you feel like, what am I not doing correctly to have my flip sold in 48 hours? Or, what's happening with pricing? And it really just helps to have these local stats uh, prove to us that, like, hey, things might be a little bit normal. There's been buyers that have been in control for a long time, and depending on which market segment you're looking at, some are floating that price per square footage and the volume level up a little bit more. So I think it's fair, depending on what you specialize in, to extract that data to say, like, what am I really looking at? Am I a flipper? Am I a luxury agent? Am I a landlord? And really just dig into the data to say, well, what's been going on, and what can I probably expect moving into the next year? Do you think that that's fair?
Yeah, I think totally. Here's kind of an interesting one that also is, and I think this is kind of what makes everybody panic. But if you look at it as so, days on market for sales is 84 days. This time last month, same thing, 84 days. Last quarter, 86 days, so slightly less than last quarter or the summertime. This time last year was 72 days, and then 2 years ago was 58 days. So it
Mm,
is taking from a year ago 12 days longer to sell, and from 2 years ago, call it 3 weeks longer to
almost
sell.
a
But
month.
it's
Yeah.
but it's not staggering. It's not like it's double the time. It's a extra couple weeks. Um,
Right.
so it's not like a staggering number. And like I said, we've sold more in the last this year than we have in the last 2 years. But a lot of people are still think the sky is falling. So
Yeah, which really brings me back to the same conversation that happens a lot within, Flip School, and just even investor to investor conversations, which is following the fundamentals. If you're an agent and you've only relied on having to stick a listing in MLS, and that's been your bread and butter, and you're having to look at, what am I doing on social media, and what am I doing for outreach, and what am I doing for my professional branding, it's like all of that bleeds into every segment, which is, what are you doing to follow the fundamentals and underwrite things better, or prepare for things better, or just expect that if this is the new normal, what does that look like for gross revenue, volume, all the things? And I'm looking at the Comfort Market Index as of December 4th. There are like almost seven, 8 cities that are still in sellers markets. So for those people that are thinking the sky is falling, I mean, again, it's like you could even dig deeper into wherever it is that you're selling, flipping, landlording, doing the things, to see which submarkets are bearing better. But yeah, Chris, I mean, it really feels like if this is going to be the new normal moving into next year, might you just look at what you can do as a business owner or an entrepreneur or solopreneur, just to get really, really good at the boring stuff and the fundamentals of your own business.
and I don't know what your comping tool looks like, or your MLS tool when you comp properties, but paying attention, or at least having that column where you have the days on market on your comps. Like,
Mm.
do you have the days on market on your comp sheet? So when because like you go to, like, what's that, Agritopia, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Oh
if you've
yeah,
ever,
Gilbert.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you see days on market, it says like 3 and 4 and 5. It's just like a house goes on the market and it gets sold in a day. And like paying attention to that column in this environment is super important, because even when I would comp stuff, and you're like, you look at this particular neighborhood, and it's like, I mean, even in a really active market, you'd see stuff that was average 60 days or 70 days. I would
Mm-hmm.
just skip that one in this current market. Like, if it's not like a 30 to 50, I'd skip it. If it's a 90 plus, then, or just budget for that and know that
Right.
you're going to have to But I mean, don't you think it's a little bit psychological when you're a flipper? At least I think this. It's like you put it on the market and you're just like a week in, 2 weeks in, and you're like,
Right. Why are we not under contract? Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, it's just in your head because you're just so used to it, and then so I think just staying out of those areas and just go into your MLS, add the days on market onto your comp sheet so you can see it with everything else, the square footage and everything else. Just check the days on market when you're comping a house and you're thinking about flipping it. If your average days on market is 70 to 90, I've seen some that are 90 plus. Just pass on that one because it's going to mess with your mind.
Well, I think, and you're right. That's a great topic to bring up, especially with flipping in a normal environment. And so one of the things that I'm also really pressing on my students and other flippers is like, look at the concessions that are being handed out too. And as much as you're looking at the days on market, which could arguably be adjusted based on like, what comps are you looking at? When did they go to market versus when did they actually get sold? There could be some seasonality to what you could expect. But the biggest thing is if you're buying marginal deals and all of a sudden you're expecting it to sell in, let's just even say 60 days with no concessions, if that gets eaten up with 1 month longer on the market and 5 or 10K in concessions, which about half of properties are paying right now, that was never a good deal to begin with. And you're kind of giving yourself undue stress, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, like if you are going to buy those and everything else is saying like, okay, this is a decent deal, just make sure that you're underwriting it correctly because there's really no good reason to be that stressed out about something. If you were really that stressed about it, it wasn't a good financial move in the first place. So one of the things that I'm seeing too, still looking at the Cromford report here, is the market share by price range. That 300 to 400 mark, Chris, is like still where the majority of things are selling. So the 2025 November count between 3 and 400,000, altogether between under 300 to 500, I'll just batch that all in, was almost 60% of the market share. And in December, it looks like it's going to be about 52%, if I'm reading this correctly. So that falls right in line with our November median price, which is 450,000. And for those of you thinking about flipping or like, where can I stay safe? It's like that low end of the market has always been a little bit more insulated. But also the top of the market, a million and above is moving pretty well too. So I think it's just an indication of like, again, what are you looking to specialize in? And you can't say the Phoenix market is doing X because it really depends on, well, what niche are you in? Are you flipping a luxury property? Are you building? Are you landlording? Are you flipping mobile homes? There's a lot of different segments that are going to be persuaded by what the data shows, depending on like what it is that you specialize in. And I sound like a broken record probably saying this, but I think when people are asking the bigger question, which I'd love to ask you, what do you see happening for 2026? Like my response so far has been is like, well, what are you doing? What do you expect to happen?
I think it's just more of the same, right? I mean, the jobs report, which we're just getting back into, we just saw the private sector jobs report, which was bad, which sent the 10-year, but the 10-year is down. But the 10 years bouncing around that 4. It's just kind of it had bounced up to 4.5 mid-year, but it's just sticking around that 4% mark, which is going to keep you like in that 6, 6.25. Maybe if you're a government loan, FHA, VA, you're going to get maybe some high 5s, but. I still think we haven't had a really strong spring, and I'm optimistic that we actually have a decent spring. So, everybody kind of likes to talk about the sky falling. Here's some more data, like the median home price, like you just mentioned, 2 years ago, 438, last year, 450, this year, 450. Not even $1 apart from this time last year to today. So there wasn't any slide on pricing. Now, could there have been more concessions giving on the 450 this year than last year? I don't know, probably, but I think there were people giving concessions last year as well. So,
I did pick up barely, like maybe 49% of listings were giving concessions, and this year it was like 50%.
Yeah.
And again, that depends on price range.
So it's not like the market's moving backwards. I think I've actually heard a couple of people, you sit around a restaurant or a bar and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna wait until it just falls apart. And I'm like,
Right.
well, I think you might be waiting a while, honestly.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I was just about to mention that I think that some of the hesitation in the market has been if prices have ticked down a tiny bit and if especially interest rates have ticked down a tiny bit, I think the mindset of the average consumer, and I'm not talking about investors, is well, now that I've seen it trend a certain way, however slightly, I'm going to wait until it trends down more. Can I get an interest rate in the fives? Can I buy a house around 400,000? Let's wait until this all falls apart. Where like even over the last 3 years since things changed dramatically in 2022, the biggest price drops that have are happening have already happened, and
Yeah.
that's bore out. So I think people are still waiting for something more dynamic than we've already had, which is toppled on top or topped on top of a lot of uncertainty that we've had this year. I mean, I think it's been really difficult to be predictive this year.
Yeah. So what was kind of interesting, and this time last year we were just kind of getting out of our, the election, and obviously COVID prices on supplies just skyrocketed, right?
Right.
And nobody actually brought their prices back down, right? Like you didn't
Why
like
would
if
they?
you were buying
Right.
a faucet and it went up in COVID, it didn't go back down to the old faucet price, right?
Right.
Uh, you did see, some increases, with tariffs, but I don't think it was like the giant landslide that everybody thought it was going to be. I mean, I kind of feel like pricing on rehab is still high post COVID. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like it's costing a lot of extra money. I would say labor pricing has slid back a little bit.
Mhm.
So obviously, when COVID was or post COVID, you couldn't get people to do a work, and honestly, I think people would just send you an estimate just to see if you would sign it. Like,
Right.
here, pay me $50,000 to rehab this house, and if you sign it, I'm gonna send my
I'll
kids
make
to
it work.
private school
Right.
next year.
Right. Little Timmy can afford to go to a private school now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's labor and material dependent. I think some have sustained the post-COVID pricing, just like you said. And that's not just in building materials. That's in anything. I mean, it's like has anything gone down in price except for like maybe TVs, something,
yeah,
nominal value. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it depends. On some material prices have gone up. I think cabinets are supposed to go up here pretty soon again. But other things have softened a tiny bit. So I think it's really good to understand your costs as it relates to rehab to know that like, hey, I don't have to pay post COVID pricing for absolutely everything. Some things have actually gone down a little bit, but still, there's no way that you're going to get pre-COVID pricing anymore. So be sure that you understand your rehab costs going into this year, because again, if you're squeezing something trying to make it a deal and you're not up to date on what things actually cost, that's going to eat your entire profit.
yeah. So, and then obviously, like I said, the days on market, but um, definitely watch that because interest costs. If you're paying interest, if you're paying cash, and you can kind of get away with. A buddy of mine bought like 12 properties, all cash, and he's like, "Yeah, I did pretty good in 2025." I'm like, "You didn't have any carrying costs."
Right.
that's,
That's
that's
actually what, yeah,
that's
doesn't
that's not
apply.
what a lot of us deal with. So, if it takes 6 to 7 months to sell, and all you did was acquisition price and rehab price, it's not exactly you know the right model that most of us have to use.
So for the people that are using financing, and I'm talking about retail buyers, Comfort Report is saying that there's actually been an uptick in affordability. So it's actually become more affordable for buyers that are looking between the $300,000 and $500,000 range. I'll try to find the clip where they're talking about that.
Well, if financing has come down, I mean, I want to say financing this time last year was like 6.75, and I
Mm,
mean it was probably touching 7. So if it's 6 now, and the price has stayed the same, I mean it's not even a dollar apart from this time last year. The
mhm.
affordability should be, if you've come down, you know, 3/4% rate and the price hasn't gone up, it should be more affordable than it was last year.
That's exactly what they're saying. So they're saying for people with a lot of money, homes that cost a lot of money are still expensive. For people with not so much money, but enough to buy a home, entry level homes are getting more affordable, especially when household incomes are rising and home prices are mostly lower over the past year or two, exactly to your point. So it
Yeah.
is less difficult to afford a modest home than it was 2 years ago. So affordability is improving, not getting worse. This could be the key reason we are seeing improving demand.
Yeah, I forgot someone's Twitter account said that demand is up, like, and
Mm.
the Comfort Market Index for their demand is 82, and it was, you know, 78 last month and 80 last quarter. So 2 years ago it was 104. So still not, what it was 2 years ago, but it's still, considering it's 82 in December, I think that's pretty good. You know,
They and yeah, no, that's a great point, and they actually just said that as well, that it's a little unusual, but we're actually looking to close December on a high note
yeah. Well,
especially compared to previous years.
well, definitely this report looks like, product is moving, and like last week I said, hey, I didn't actually read the Comfort report when we jumped on last week. I was like, hey, by the way, there's like 1,500, 1,700 units that have gone off the market, and you know, I kind of said it might just be people canceling for holiday reasons, right? But
Mm.
looking at this, it looks like there's actually a little bit more demand, and like what you said, there's a little bit more demand right now in December, which is unusual, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so people are buying. I mean, things are still moving, and our, like you said, our volume might actually, or looks to be a little bit higher. So for 2026, what are you benchmarking against? Are you looking at 2025 as going to be
Yeah,
par
no,
for the
I
course?
yeah, I think that like if you had a strong spring, inventory move down back into the low 20s. I mean, imagine it getting into like 19 or 18. That would
Mm,
be good. I think the economy is not as good as people think it is. So typically, when you get some bad, more economic numbers, that I believe that's going to push the 10 year. I think the 10 year hits 3.75 in the first quarter,
mm.
which will bring the interest rates down to 5.75, 5.5 for those government loans, which obviously will bring better affordability, and you start getting some people off the shelf. I think what it takes is it takes people to get to maybe mid fives to low fives. And then if you had a
Yeah.
4% interest rate, you might consider swapping your house, right?
Right.
If you're stuck on that 4% rate, or you're not tempted to move. You're like, I'm gonna stay right here.
Yeah, and I see the demographic that used to buy the entry level houses, I think has been having a harder time coming up with the down payment. Now, a lot of them do have help from family members, but what I'm seeing too is it's not just home prices; it's everything prices. It's the price of a car, even if it's not brand new. It's the price of groceries. It's the price of gas. It's kind of just like the normal cost of living that's contributing to people not feeling as robust. But I think I would hope that people are also understanding like 6%, around 6% interest rates is normal. Around 450 for a home price is going to be normal. So you either get in and buy what you need and assume you're going to be in it for 5 or 10 years, or you just keep waiting on the sidelines and you're essentially priced out like a lot of people have been. And that's sort of the flux that I see with people either continuing to wait for something that's like some black swan event that's probably not going to happen again, or they just understand that this is the new normal and they're jumping in. And that said, I think on the oh, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, the time where interest rates were, 4 and 3% is such a minute
Yeah,
time in history. It's
right.
just much of, I mean, I was, when I first bought my house in my 20s, I think I paid 7.25, right? I didn't, now I think I bought my first house for like 180 grand,
Sure.
a little bit better pricing, but, my income wasn't, I was, I don't know, making 40 grand, 50 grand a year. It's not like I was, making a bunch of money.
Right.
So, I think salaries are better now than they were back then. So, I mean, the 6% and 7% mortgage is just, and if prices stay flat for a while, like I said, we go from 450 to, what was it, 437 2 years ago to 450 to 450 again. I mean, if that's just the way it has to, and in jobs to catch up, and that's just what it's going to be.
Right. Right. Which is all the more argument that if you are on the rehabbing and flipping side, to just put out a really good product, do something. It doesn't have to be super design forward, but if people understand, hey, this is just these are prices now, they're much more inclined to purchase a beautiful home that's already been done than have to come up with $50,000 to $100,000 themselves to have to renovate it afterwards. So for the people that are out there still flipping, again, just circling back to what we were talking about earlier, just make sure you underwrite it really well and account for these other contingencies. Otherwise, it's not a good deal. And put out a beautiful product. That's the stuff that's still moving. People want that. And I think especially now with people feeling more uncertain, it's like, not to get woo-woo about things, but people want to feel, like they live in a beautiful home and it's their sanctuary and well done and not another stress factor. So, that's my 2 cents for people that are like, should I flip? Should I not flip? Well, my joke is, well, people only want nice houses when the economy is doing well. They, of course not. They especially want nice houses when things are a little bit uncertain. So if you can target in on certain price ranges, areas, price points, days on market, these sort of things, and just pluck off even a few good deals a year, it goes a long way.
It's kind of to that point, like an interesting piece of the market that if you ever get bored and you want to go look, if you go look in areas like Queen Creek or Maricopa, you'll see like the 1,900 square foot house, single level, blah, blah, and it'll sit there for 60 days, right? 70 days. You see the same 1,900 square foot house with a pool that maybe 25 grand more or 30 grand more, it sells in one day. And why is that? Because XYZ homeowner doesn't want to go pay to put in a pool. Yeah. He's getting a USDA loan that's 100% funding, and he might as well put it into his 30-year mortgage and have the pool than have to buy the house and add the pool, right? So I've always looked at like, oh, people comp like houses in Maricopa with a pool and be like, oh, just take 20 grand off the pool. I'm like, no, you don't.
That's not what yeah.
People will pay, they get 100% money out there because of the USDA loan. They will pay a premium for the pool. Don't think it's just a 20 grand ad. It's a much bigger ad than that.
That just speaks to the psychology of the buyers that are out there in general, right? So I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are a fair population of real estate professionals that are probably freaked out this year that their volume wasn't there, or they just didn't do as well, didn't make as much money. It took a lot more hustle. Maybe they weren't practicing the fundamentals as much and they've had to retool, take on part-time jobs, these sort of things. But if you dig into who the audience that you're serving, right, whatever segment that you're in, and really look at, again, the data, we are still moving. So it's like, if you're here to serve and here to understand why they're buying, what it is that is motivating them, why they're willing to pay a premium, instead of being stuck in things are different, they're slower, they're bad, and just capping yourself with that mindset, I think there's still good opportunity. It might look different than it did a few years ago. But again, I mean, dude, we had a 10, 12-year run. That's not necessarily normal. If this is normal, what does that mean for your success is what I'm asking.
So interesting, like to your point, like when we were getting in that crazy time, we were selling 110, 112 units a year in 2020 and 2021. It's 74,000. It probably ends out the year at like 76,000, whatever the number is. But like, okay, so we're off, 30%. All right, well, just adjust. It's not like the industry's not moving. It's right. I can tell you my income's definitely off 30%, but I don't need all 30% of my income to live. So I don't even live on half of my income. So
And for that, I love that you brought that up. For those of us that have been in the industry for a while, like I used to work behind the scenes for other investors. And man, when you're dealing with short sale after short sale and pre-foreclosures and walking, people having spent all their retirement and kids' college funds and all this, and you're belly to belly with them at the kitchen table, and you're like, how this is a horrible financial situation to be in. It ingrains in you to be so financially responsible that your baseline is far lower than what your income is. And so I think if there's one takeaway, it's, are you investing in yourself as much as we're thinking my business will never end at this clip? And if and when it does change, are you prepared for that? And for those of us that are stewards of like the FIRE movement or living on less than half your income, I think it really speaks to like, yeah, this year was different, but it doesn't have to be devastating.
yeah.
So what does that look like again for your success moving forward? But what does that look like for your financial, your financial strength as well?
Well, once you've been through a financial crisis and you lose everything, you learn to like, I could double my income tomorrow and I'll probably still be driving the 2018 Ford F-150 that's sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it does change things. And especially for someone at your level, it's like proof that you don't have to spend everything that you make and be really braggadocious on like
Yeah.
Instagram to make people think that you're cool. What do you think are a couple takeaways, Chris, that people can get out of this episode moving? And we only have a few weeks left of December, and then we're off to a fresh start in 2026.
I honestly think it's a little bit of a buyer's market. Like it's time
Yeah.
to buy your next flip. Like I think it's really it's time to buy your next flip, especially I think if you're going to rehab it selling into February. I think the spring market's going to be good. I honestly do. It's been sluggish for the last 3 years. I think it's going to be, but seasonality would say that spring will be better than fall, right? So I think interest rates trickle down. I don't think they're going down crazy. I think they're going down another 0.25%. And now, once again, that's not the Fed rate.
Right.
That's just a little bit more economic data. I mean, no offense, Bitcoin was 126, and I haven't checked it today, but it dipped to 80. So, I mean, I don't own any, but still, when you have people, getting away from risk, they tend to move towards, more stable assets. And a bond is obviously a more stable asset. So, the S&P is still on a moonshot. Like, if it starts to falter, people will go buy more of the 10-year. People will go run from cryptocurrency. Will buy more of the 10-year. Start buying more of bonds and for safety reasons, and supply demand, interest rates come down, people start moving more into real estate.
So I'll ask you this last question, an impromptu podcast about you. What do you think that AI is going to do for, and I'll boil it down to the Phoenix market. How do you think that that's going to change people's success or hinder them in moving into 2026 as a real estate professional?
Well, I think just like number one, the tools that are out there with AI, like you don't even have to like, how do I get a script for making cold calls? Like, a student goes like, how do I get a script? I'm like, go to ChatGPT, say, I want a script for calling for sale by owners, and give me a script. I'm a wholesaler. Give me a script, and it spits it out for you. Right. But I think that the people or the teams that, really kind of dive into AI, using, predictability to sell, using AI, sales tools. We all know Steve, he keeps training his AI salesperson to, basically, deal with all the majority of the calls. But if you can have an AI assistant deal with 95% of the calls, so your real acquisition guy can deal with the 5% of the calls that are the most important.
Right.
All of that's going to just, people that can implement that are just going to, skyrocket past the people that don't.
I'm with you. I was taking some notes as we were talking about it too. And I think the main takeaways I would think going into 2026 are run things lean. I think that, you and I have been saying this collectively and individually probably for the last 2 or 3 years, is like, go through your books. Like, what are you paying for that you don't need to pay for anymore?
Yeah.
Is there any fat that you could potentially trim without giving up, revenue that comes from it? Like, is this a 5X on what I'm spending? Is the value there from whatever I'm spending is my bigger takeaway. I think that the agents and professionals that use AI are going to skyrocket what it is that they're able to do individually. Even if you're a solopreneur, there's so much that if you just take the time and the effort, even if you have to pay someone to get it onboarded for you, that can help you build better fundamentals and traction within your business. That is worth the investment. Knowing your numbers as a business owner, and even per property, right? Like, you don't have to be high volume, or even if you are high volume, what's happening in my business? What are my metrics? Just like most business owners, you have to know your numbers. I don't know if a lot of real estate professionals take that super seriously. Putting out a really good product, whatever you do as an agent, if you're a service, if you're a flipper, just as a landlord, putting out a really good product definitely helps you get premiums as well. And share it online on social media. I mean, there's a lot to be said with the heavy lifting of getting referrals when it just comes to people understanding that you're around. So I think things, I don't want to make any predictions for 2026, but if they're based on what we've been seeing in 2025 and we get a nice little spring season compared to last year, I think that any or all of these could really help you do very well in your business. And I've always been of the mindset that most businesses aren't going to see huge growth year over year over year over year. If you have 8 to 10% profit on anything that you're doing, and that's sustainable over the long term, that's healthy.
Yeah, for sure. And if you need someone to mimic on social media, watch Tracy, because she does a really good job. Way better than me. So,
or Luke, that happens to not be here, but you'll probably see him unloading furniture on his Instagram.
You know what? It dawned on me. I was sitting at Jack's house and we were watching the Suns Minnesota game last night, and his Minnesota Timberwolves got beat by the Suns without Devin Booker, without like 3 starters, and it's probably and Minnesota was at home, and Anthony Edwards had like 40 points, and so he probably just didn't want to show up today. And I'm gonna scratch out this little clip to him for this last 30 seconds, and I'm going to send it to him as soon as I get off.
I was waiting for there to be like a real estate parallel to this, and no, it was just
it was just basketball.
I was waiting for like the big takeaway here. Yeah, just basketball. Cool.
Well, it's been fun, Tracy. Hopefully you have a good holidays. Everybody that watches later. We appreciate you. We'll be back third Tuesday for the Phoenix RIA. We got, I think, all the slots. I don't have them all in my head, but we pretty much have all the slots filled for next year. If you want to see something specific on the Red Room, reach out to me, DM Tracy, DM Luke. Mm-hmm. We probably have a connection to help you find that source, and we will be back next year.
Thanks, Chris. It's been wonderful. Here's to your guys' success.